Could Taiwan lose another of its few diplomatic allies? All eyes are on Tuvalu as it chooses a new leader. Organic farmers are helping to tackle the global climate crisis. Why Taiwanese are choosing to raise pets, not children. Plus, the year of the rabbit is about to end. For hundreds of bunnies, it wasn't a good year. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. We begin with developments on Taiwan's diplomatic relations with the Pacific island nation of Tuvalu. Rumors have been swirling for weeks now that Tuvalu's new prime minister could break ties with Taiwan and switch to China. Louise Watt has been following the story for us, and she joins us now from Taipei. Louise, what are you hearing?
It's safe to say that Taipei is closely watching this race for leader, even though it's happening in an island nation more than 7,000 kilometers away. And that's because whoever wins as leader could be the difference between Taiwan holding on to one of its diplomatic allies or losing it. Now, I've been speaking to sources close to the negotiations, and we know there are two front runners. One is Anele Saponga, he's a former prime minister, and the other one is the current finance minister, Seve Panyo. Now, Saponga, he is viewed as being very close to Taiwan's foreign ministry. On the other hand, Panyo is seen as favoring closer ties with Beijing. So that may well be worrying Taiwan's foreign ministry, who, when rumors first emerged that Tuvalu could ditch Taipei, put out a statement saying they very much cherish their diplomatic relations with Tuvalu and are willing to continue to enhance relations.
Louise, you've been to Tuvalu. Is Taiwan important to them?
Tuvalu is Taiwan's longest standing ally in the region, so its ties go deep. When you're there on the ground, you can see various educational, medical, and other projects that Taiwan has been running for years there. So ordinary Tuvaluans are very aware of Taiwan because of the work it does. They see its flag up. And politicians in Funafuti, the capital, are used to working with Taipei. That said, Taiwan has lost diplomatic allies in the past because China has promised to spend more money on them than Taiwan does. And Tuvalu is remote. It's at risk of rising sea levels. And so if China can come in and promise to spend more money on making it less isolated, for instance, by developing telecommunications, by building more infrastructure, possibly even investing more in land reclamation, that may well be appealing to some within the government.
Thank you, Louise. That was Louise Watt reporting in Taipei. Stay tuned to TaiwanPlus as we follow this developing story. Taiwan and Eswatini have reaffirmed their long-standing diplomatic ties by signing a joint declaration in Taipei. The foreign minister of the African nation praised Taiwan for helping to transform the lives of people in Eswatini and said her country wanted to reiterate its, quote, constructive and sustainable alliance with Taipei. Taiwan and Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, have had official ties for more than 50 years. It is one of Taiwan's 12 remaining diplomatic allies and the only one in Africa. Taiwan wants to bring its emissions to net zero by 2050. There's little doubt that getting there will be a challenge, but one farming project in a country's southeast could be part of the solution. Sally Jensen traveled to Hualien to find out more.
Chiu Chui-chuan didn't plan to be here. After living much of his life abroad, he returned to his childhood town of Changliang in southeastern Taiwan in 2019. And when COVID hit, he took up farming.
你要维持一个比较好的生态，问题是你要让人家知道说有效啊，什么样有效，对不对？这个方法要找出来。
But it wasn't easy for the small-scale grain farmer. Crops were being damaged by pests and rising temperatures. And while others here had long used chemical pesticides and fertilizers, Chiu decided to take a risk and go organic on his 1-hectare plot of land. This not only increased his yields, but also improved the quality of the soil and its ability to absorb carbon dioxide.
我们加了一些，就是我们叫微生物质材之后呢，其实真正的我们有发现它的有机碳是有增加的。有机碳增加就表示你有减碳。
Together, plants and soils currently absorb around 30% of the CO2 emitted by human activities each year. To try and curb an accelerating climate crisis, countries around the world are looking to improve their soil's capacity to absorb those emissions. And that's the case in Taiwan, which emits more carbon dioxide per person than most Asian countries. But there are small-scale agricultural plots like Chiu's across the country, and their rich soils are now seen as key to meeting Taiwan's climate goals. Chiu and over 20 other small-scale farmers like him have joined an initiative aimed at restoring soil health. Collectively, their 150 acres of farmland are now internationally recognized by a carbon credits program, through which companies that emit carbon dioxide can compensate those who maintain strong carbon-absorbing soil. Skeptics say these sorts of initiatives place a monetary value on nature and simply offer a way for large companies to continue their pollution-generating business practices. But the project's coordinators say the benefit to the community is tangible.
We provide a good model, golden standard for them to see, hey, we can support this farmer. So we can resolve the food security and climate security.
Once certified, farmers can mark their produce with a logo to show their ecological value, encouraging consumers to make more environmentally friendly purchases. It's carbon absorption projects like this one that Taiwan hopes will help it become a climate leader on the world stage. And the goal here is for more of the country's many small-scale farmers to join the initiative to keep these soils rich long into the future. Alex Chen and Sally Jensen in Hualien County for TaiwanPlus.
A Taiwan court has issued a wanted persons order for 2 people involved in a sinking of a container ship last year. The CEO and former captain of the Palau-listed ship Angel are overseas and did not show up to the court case. They're suspected of hiding damage to the vessel before it sank off Kaohsiung port last July. The sinking led to the loss at sea of more than 600 shipping containers and an oil leak that cost over $6 million to clean up. Taiwan's ruling party has expelled 50 members for violating its rules. The Democratic Progressive Party's Central Evaluation Committee says the members either campaigned for other political parties or were involved in #MeToo scandals. Those expelled include a former lawmaker, Julian Guo. He has criticized the party on political TV shows. Taiwan has ushered in a new legislature following its national elections last month. And its election of Kuo-yu from the Kuomintang as legislative speaker could now shift Taiwan's politics as well as its relations with other countries. For more on this, TaiwanPlus reporter Jeremy Olivier spoke with Suzhou University political science professor Chen Fangyu.
What is parliamentary diplomacy, and how does it differ from the diplomacy that's conducted by Taiwan's foreign ministry?
The activities are all conducted by the congressional members. They are not responsible for the official policies. For example, a lot of countries has their own one China policies, that is to avoid official contact with Taiwan. So if the activities are conducted by the congressional members, then it has nothing to do with the official policies, because every congressman just represent for the public opinions instead of the government.
How did just departed Speaker Yoshi Cohen develop the legislature's relations with countries that are supportive of Taiwan?
In the past few years, the biggest change of Taiwan's diplomatic relationship is that we have broadened our relationship with East European countries, and a lot of those countries are has parliamentary systems, and some of their parliamentary members are also serving in the cabinet. So I think it's very good that Taiwan can have a these kind of activities to maintain a good relationship with them. And Mr. Yoshi-kun just promotes a lot of these kind of interactions, and I think he does a good job.
What is Han Kuo-yu's track record on Taiwan's foreign relations? What could his election as the new speaker mean for those relations and cross-strait ties going forward?
Well, I'm a little bit worried about that because, Han Kuo-yu had a very notorious records on the foreign visitors. For example, when he served as the Kaohsiung city mayor, several times that he was late to the events that hosting the visiting scholars and visiting foreign visitors. I'm also worried about Han Kuo-yu's cross-strait relations policies as well, because when he was running for the Kaohsiung city mayor and also running for the president, one of the major policies is that he wants to promote the openness to China, especially open to China's economic market. Also, he once has visited Hong Kong and to see the Chinese officials there, and that move was highly criticized by many people because it is not proper for a Taiwanese official to see Chinese officials there, because it's China has ambitions over Taiwan, and also China is showing the big hand controlling Hong Kong.
That was Suzhou University political science professor Chen Fangyu speaking with Jeremy Olivier. Four-legged friends are more than just pets for many in Taiwan, and with the cost of living crisis plaguing the island, pamper pets are replacing babies. Rosie Greninger has the story.
More and more prams are visible on Taipei streets. But on closer inspection, it's pets in the carriers and not babies.
那你在薪水不涨的情况下，当然会选择能够陪伴又好玩又有爱的毛小孩。对啊。
According to a study by the Taiwanese Institute of Economic Research, less young people are wanting to start a family. But despite the soaring cost of living, the number of registered dogs and cats reached over 2 million last year, outpacing the number of babies being born.
但现阶段其实大家都会称他们是毛孩，就是真的把它当成家人啊，当成小孩在看待。所以对于医疗的要求，对于生活的品质，这些其实都有在逐渐往上提升的状态。
And those who have pets say it's easier and cheaper than having a child.
养一个毛小孩来讲，其实他也不会对我们哭，也不会对我们闹，也不会可能未来发生很多社会的问题。他顶多就可能就是叫，或者是可能也都是安静的在一个地方。那我们人也需要一些心灵上的支持。
The Institute's study predicts the number of pets in Taiwan could exceed the number of children by 2027, a concern for the country, which has one of the lowest birth rates in the world. To try and curb an ageing population crisis, the government has even offered subsidies to entice people to marry and have kids. During the recent campaign, billionaire presidential candidate Terry Go went as far as promising a pet to expected parents for every child they have.
生一个孩子，我让你多养一只宠物啊，猫啊狗啊。
But the scheme didn't land well with voters, who criticised him for being out of touch with the pressures parents face with a newborn. So instead, they're spending their hard-earned dollars on their furry friends. It's good news for the country's booming pet industry, with Taiwanese decking their pets out with the latest accessories, clothing, and treating them to gourmet meals. And for the pets now, a substitute for children, life as a single fur child is positively pampered. Eason Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, Japanese communities struggled to return to normal a month after a devastating earthquake.
Halfway there, coming Saturday, February 10th, 3 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. North Korea has fired multiple cruise missiles off its western coast. This is the fourth time in a little over a week the country has tested this kind of weapon. South Korea's military says the North is using these tests to upgrade its capabilities. Earlier this week, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited a naval shipyard and spoke about the importance of war preparations. Pyongyang has accused South Korea and the U.S. of escalating tensions on the peninsula. The United States is changing its military strategy in the Asia-Pacific. Reuters recently reported that the U.S. used joint military exercises between Australia and the U.S. last summer to stockpile defense equipment in Australia. It comes as part of an effort to develop similar stockpiles in other Asia-Pacific countries. Our reporter Bryn Thomas spoke to Matthew Sussex from the Griffith Asia Institute to find out more.
Last summer, the U.S. reportedly used the Talisman Sabre exercises to create a stockpile of military equipment in Australia. And this stockpile is supposedly just one of several set up by the U.S. through agreements with countries around the Asia-Pacific. How does this show a shift in U.S. strategic planning?
Yeah, look, I think it's an evolution in American strategic thought based on changes in some of the big debates about logistics and where you put war stocks. Previously, there was an emphasis on having great big ammo resupply and equipment resupply depots. And now I think that the logic is that it's better to have sort of multiple ones, partly, of course, because it increases their survivability, but also because it can potentially enable the US to negotiate more quickly with certain allies as opposed to others in the event of regional conflict.
Australia is relatively far from Taiwan. Now, considering that the U.S. already has large bases in Japan and South Korea, how does having a stockpile in Australia help the U.S. respond to crises in the Taiwan Strait or in the South China Sea?
Well, look, at the moment, it doesn't, given that the U.S. has only left minimal stocks for a few companies, I think, to perform resupply. So this is resupplying the resuppliers, if you like. It is further away and therefore beyond the range of some of the Chinese naval ship-based missiles. And in addition to that, it also potentially sets the stage for US combat operations in the southern end of the South China Sea. And that's in line also with recent changes to Australian strategic policy. The Defence Strategic Review focuses very much on littoral defence, by which it means effectively, the sort of archipelagic part of Southeast Asia. And I think that's predominantly where these stocks are intended for primary use.
Why wouldn't the U.S. simply place a stockpile of weapons in Taiwan?
Well, for one thing, because it would be a target. And for another thing, its defense relationship with Taiwan is one which is kind of conditioned by the Taiwan Relations Act. Whereas with Australia, you have a fully fledged bilateral security treaty that dates back to the 1950s. And that's very long-standing security and defence cooperation, and therefore I think Australia is very much seen as a logical partner when it comes to these types of decisions.
How could these U.S. weapons stockpiles affect planning by China's military, the PLA?
I mean, I think it does give the PLA a bit of potential pause when it comes to thinking about things like hypothetical conflict escalation. So we've seen, for instance, in the Ukraine conflict that NATO has been resupplying Ukraine and that Vladimir Putin has been very reticent to take any action, really, despite the rhetoric, to directly engage with NATO forces. Now, it's different in Southeast Asia, but nonetheless, I think it's still the case that the Chinese would have to consider the likelihood of broadening a conflict if in fact they decided to target US war stocks that were on Australian soil, especially if Australia wasn't necessarily a directly participant combatant in the event of hostilities between the two. So it makes the situation, I think, broader and potentially a bit more complex in terms of Chinese decision making.
That was Matthew Sussex from the Griffith Asia Institute speaking to our reporter Bryn Thomas. Activists in Taiwan have gathered to show solidarity with Myanmar and its struggle against the military junta, but they also say Taiwan should do more to help. Rick Glauber reports from Taiwan's legislature.
台湾政府负起人道义务，缅甸难民需要合法权利。
it's now been 3 years since Myanmar's elected leaders were ousted in a military coup. Resistance to the junta has plunged that Southeast Asian country into civil war. Now, here at Taiwan's legislature, activists are calling on Taiwan to do more to help Myanmar's people push for democracy. They're demanding Taiwan does more to help the tens of thousands of Burmese people that live here and can't return home. They also want Taiwan to allow Myanmar refugees to settle in Taiwan, and they're calling on Taiwan to join other countries in sanctioning the junta.
是在说我们缅甸民主倒退了，说我们必须要进步到，我们要走抗议到底到民主的路的时候，台湾也是一个民主的国家，民主的政府。 不管是执政党、在野党也好，必须要看的一个民主的路线，需要帮忙我，就对的。
Taiwan prides itself on its democracy and being one of the freest places in Asia. Now, activists here are saying Taiwan should do more to live up to its reputation and help its neighbours. Alex Chen and Rick Lowett in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
1 month after an earthquake devastated Japan's western coast, thousands of residents are still struggling to recover. Harrell Hughes tells us more.
Terashita Chisa tries to tap in her kitchen, waiting for water that hasn't run here in a month. Her home lost access during a magnitude 7.6 earthquake that left over 230 people dead and devastated Japan's western coast. A month later, her family is rationing water with no sign of change.
地震始まってからも水が出なくなって、で今現在出てなくて、復旧のめどが2月末ぐらいから順番に復旧していくっていうのがテレビで流れてるだけの情報しかないので、出るのを待つしかないのかなっていう、まだ1月末やしあと1ヶ月2ヶ月は出ないのかなっていう。
Terashita's family is not the only one waiting. The earthquake devastated communities and forced thousands of residents into evacuation centers. And the road to recovery has been slow.
まだ復興まで行かんでしょうね。今やっと水が出たばっかりで、お風呂も長い間入られなんで、ここにも大きい風呂あるんやけど、それも朝霧5時から行って、普段風呂ってこんな入られるそんな状態でした。今ちょっと楽になったそうです。
Officials have set up temporary shelters, currently home to more than 13,000 survivors. With conditions as they are, and the restoration of running water not expected for another 2 months, there are fears of an impending health crisis. Communal water tanks have become a lifeline for communities who are adjusting to their new reality.
この生活にでもだいぶ慣れて、これが当たり前にちょっとなりつつあるので、どうにか乗り切れるかなっていう乗り切るしかないなっていう思いだけで今過ごしてますね。
Aid is coming to the area as fast as it can, but the extent of devastation has made access to basic necessities a struggle. And survivors have to make do as they wait for their access to vital supplies to be restored. Delphine Chen and Harrell Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
The year of the rabbit is coming to an end, but it's not been a good year for the animals, with hundreds of them abandoned around the country. Our reporter Cindy Chi explains.
This is 收店不做了, which means out of business in Mandarin Chinese. He's a fluffy little bunny adopted in the year of the rabbit and abandoned just after a few months. He's now in the care of the Taiwan Rabbit Saving Association.
它是我们从收容所的接回来的兔子，那它当时好像只有3个月左右的幼兔。
In the months he's been with the association, staffers say this little guy has developed a cuddly, outgoing personality. But it's also become clear why he was abandoned.
At less than a year old, Soldier Buzola was abandoned because of problems with his legs, and he is just one of the over 200 rabbits here.
The association says it normally takes in around 200 bunnies a year from animal shelters and illegal farms. Many are also found abandoned on the streets and sent to the facility. But in 2023, the year of the rabbits, that number spiked to 350, far too many for the group to handle.
8、9月的这一段时间，我们的收容量已经爆满，就是已经没有办法再继续收容了。有很多的案件，我们没有办法提供直接收容的方式，我们会帮忙做就是送养的刊登啊、自助送养会这一些管道，帮忙这一些捡到弃兔的朋友，然后来做送养。
The number of abandoned rabbits spiked in 2023 because people bought bunnies that year, believing that they would bring fortune and prosperity.
大家到了兔年就会觉得说，我要去养一只兔子讨个吉利，或者是甚至是把小兔子当做礼物去送给亲朋好友。可是他们这些冲动饲养的状态下，他们不会去了解到说兔子应该要怎么样正确饲养。
Pet shops benefit from the belief and sell more rabbits. But shops and rabbit lovers say it's not so simple to raise a pet rabbit.
卖的最好还是侏儒兔，荷兰侏儒兔卖的最好，因为它体型最小，单价算比较低的，我们都会交代得很清楚，也不希望新手啊不会养，或是老手啊养错了。
The association and some pet shops hope people will pay more attention to caring for their rabbits, or find other ways to wish for good fortune and luck. Kaohsiung and Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. You can visit the Taiwan Plus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today, a little reminder that spring is just over a month away. Plum blossoms are in full bloom in central Taiwan's Nantou County. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.